afternoon and welcome into Chicago's favorite sports talk podcast, where sports bridges the gap between the generations. I am your only host today, Jason Kinander. I'm Generation Z, sports and news reporter at 13 News in Topeka, Kansas. But I am the son of the great Peggy Kaczynski, who I co-host this podcast with. She's not here today. They are a little bit busy. They, as in my parents, are a little bit busy at home, enjoying their time together, not, during football season. So can't blame them for that. I've got the time, so I'm doing a show today to preview Rams and Bears. It's going to be a big one at Soldier Field on Sunday. The Bears are coming into this one. They're 1-2. The Rams are 1-2 as well. Pair of teams that are desperate to get a win. The Rams have been here before. They've been off to bad starts before and have been able to turn it into a postseason berth. Last year, they started 3-6 and ended up making the postseason. The Bears have never done that before. So the Bears need this win on Sunday. They need this win bad. And we saw improvement last Sunday in Indianapolis, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Caleb Williams looked fantastic for the most part, outside of a few mistakes. I was so super impressed just with his poise, especially late in the game. Some of those deep throws that he made were throws that I have never seen a Bears quarterback make in my life. And there are people older than me who listen to this show, one of them who does the show with me, who could probably say the exact same thing. So Caleb Williams, I was pleased with on Sunday. DeAndre Swift, not so much. The Bears are making a long overdue, and it's crazy that this can be overdue at 3 games into the season, change at running back. Roschon Johnson, who is a healthy scratch in week 2, is now the de facto starting running back in week 4. I think that this is a good move. Roschon is a big body back. DeAndre Swift, I don't know what happened to all of his shiftiness this summer. It's gone. He has not broken a single tackle yet on the Bears. His juke package is out the window. It's time to see a new face or two in that backfield. And so I'm excited to watch Roschon Johnson play. Let's talk about the defense now. The Bears defense was good, maybe not great on Sunday against Indy. I'm going to say that was their worst performance of the 3 games this year. I mean, the defense won them the game in week 1 and then kept them in the game in week 2. And week 3, the mistakes were a little bit more apparent and hurt a little bit more. The defense wasn't able to keep the Bears in the game through the end of it. And they're going to need to be better on Sunday in front of that home crowd, noon kickoff. Soldier Field's going to be packed. Not quite bear weather yet. But, the defense is going to need to make plays on Sunday. That goes without saying. Tyreek Stevenson, I've got my eyes on you. I think that he has been pretty mistake-prone at times this year. But as we saw in the Tennessee game, when he makes a big play, it can change the course of the game and even win you the game. So Tyreek Stevenson is my player to watch on the defensive side of the ball. Also taking a look at the Bears front 7 with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp being out for the Rams. Establishing that run game is going to be incredibly important for Matthew Stafford in the offense. And so the Bears can't be run all over like they were last weekend by Jonathan Taylor. And Kyren Williams isn't Jonathan Taylor, but he's still a pretty good running back, 1,000-yard running back. And Bears are going to need to stop him. That'll be the first order of business on the defensive side, considering who else is out for the Rams. But in all, I'm expecting this to be a low-scoring game, a close game. I'm hoping that the Bears can put the ball in Caleb Williams' hands with timeouts late in the game and a chance to win. I think that is a scenario that I'm looking forward to on Sunday in front of a home crowd, now with 3 games under his belt, where he's improved in every single game. I think that this is a situation that could be good for Caleb. This isn't a spectacular Rams defense. There's no more Aaron Donald on that side for the Rams. And so Caleb's going to have the opportunity to scramble out of the pocket, make plays with his legs, make plays with his big arm. And I'm excited to see it happen. So when we get to my prediction segment, I'll make my prediction on the game. But for now, let's take in our guest. Well, to help me talk this upcoming Bears and Rams game this weekend, I figured that I'd bring on a Twitter friend of mine from NBC Sports Los Angeles. Michael Duarte covers the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Los Angeles Rams. I know that you're a little bit busy with baseball at this time of the year, but I figured we could grab you to talk some Bears and some Rams. Michael, how are you doing?
Yeah, Jason, I know we're talking football, but we used to talk baseball back in the day. That's why I'm wearing my Ohtani hat for you, the soon-to-be runaway MVP in the National League. And obviously, I know you and I have talked White Sox a lot in the past. They're about to have a very historic season here at some point over this weekend. But also happening over this weekend, as you mentioned, something that I'm very excited about is Rams and Bears. And it's not just because it's NFL football. It's not just because it's two interesting 1-2 teams going head to head, but it's because my buddy, my fellow USC alum, Caleb Williams, number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft in 2024. Guy I got to cover for a couple years, including his Heisman year at USC, taking the field against the Rams, getting to see him, especially after that rookie passing yard record he set last week against the Colts. This is a matchup I'm excited to see, and thanks for having me on to talk about it.
No problem. So let's get right to it, talking about this matchup. As you mentioned, 1-2 teams, two teams that really need a win. The Rams went out and got one against all odds last week. What can you take away from last week's comeback win against the 49ers that can be applied to this weekend's game in Chicago?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I'm going to answer your question by going back in time a little bit. I thought that the Rams, even though they had to come from behind, should have won that opening match in Detroit at Ford Field. I know they were banged up. People were dropping in that game like flies. Puka Nacua, knocked out early in that game. That hurts the Rams offense that he was breaking all the rookie receiving records. Talking about rookies records, he was breaking all the rookie receiving records last season, including touchdowns, yards. So to me, I thought most people were like, hey, the Rams hung in there despite all these injuries. I thought, no, you guys had a lead in this game. You guys should have won this game. And the Lions kind of took it from you because it went to overtime and they got the ball and they went straight down and got a touchdown. And the Rams didn't have a chance to counter, but they had many opportunities to get 7 points instead of 3, to get 7 points instead of an interception in the end zone in that game. I thought that was a game they blew. And then that's going to flash forward us to week 3 at SoFi Stadium in their home opener, a game they were down 10 points to the 49ers in the fourth quarter. And I thought they stole that game like Debo stealing the bike in next Friday. I mean, this is something out of a Hollywood script. So I guess it makes sense that the Rams are the ones who win this thing, because that was a game that, if you really look at it, I thought the 49ers blew. I thought the 49ers were going to be kicking themselves because they had this Rams team multiple times out for dead. And that big missed field goal that would have made it a 2-score game. Obviously, the Rams come back and score a touchdown to tie it, letting Xavier Smith take that punt all the way to midfield. Like, so many things the 49ers did. That dropped pass that was would have sealed the game towards the end of the game. A lot of mistakes on the part of the 49ers, in my opinion, that let the Rams steal it. But to your point, Jason, the Rams did steal it, right? So now they're coming in with this wave of momentum, right? Some like a big sigh of relief. We're not 0-3 heading to Chicago, where the Bears have won their last 6 at home. It's, what used to be Soldier Field. We can win despite not having Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, despite our offensive line composed of the guys behind the guys, and in some cases behind the guys up off the practice squad. This offensive line is more brittle right now than a 3-month-old bar of soap. But yet the Rams still were able to protect Matthew Stafford to an extent against a great 49ers defense and pass rush, obviously, with Bosa and some of those guys on the defensive line. They were able to give up less sacks than they did the week before in Arizona against the Cardinals. And I think no disrespect to the Cardinals, but the Niners defense, I believe, is better than the Cardinals, especially on the defensive front. So that's a good sign. You had no injuries coming out of that game. Cooper Kupp is the only one who is not going to be participating, who's going to be out for this game in Chicago. And we already knew he was going to be out. There was talk he might even go on the IR, but they don't even have enough spots on the IR at this point. So that's another good sign coming out of it with health. So to answer your question in a long-winded way, yeah, I think if you can ride this momentum, now things don't look as dire, because if you can go up and take a win from a Chicago team that I think is still trying to figure out their identity right now and how they want to play with Caleb Williams. I think Caleb and the offensive coaching staff is learning that he can't just do what he did in college. He can't just run around and create plays with his feet and throw balls on dimes. That, there's a phrase that Mookie Betts from the Dodgers likes to say. He says, these guys drive nice cars too. These guys drive Mercedes and Benzes too. Whenever you tip your cap to an opponent who has good players and superstars, and they get it done. So what I think Caleb Williams and the Bears are learning is at the NFL level, these guys drive cars too. They got nice cars. You go on the defensive line, these are top 10 draft picks. These are guys who are Pro Bowlers, right? You can't just evade a tackle, stiff arm a guy, run around the field for 20 yards and then deliver a dart anymore. Some guys can still do that, but for the most part, they can't. You go back to that CJ Stroud quote after they lost the Texans. It kind of went viral where he's like, hey, try not to get hit like that, because if you don't, you're a good player. You're going to have a long career. And so I think the Bears are figuring it out. I think Caleb's figuring it out. I think they're learning. I think it was a good sign to get those passing yards last game, and the amount of times they threw the ball for Caleb's confidence compared to the weeks prior. So yeah, this is a good matchup that I think both teams can come into. But I think the Rams are looking at it like, if we can come out of here 2-2, even if we lose, which I think they will in week 5, and fall to 2-3, then you get the bye week. And everyone should come back after that. Most people come back, and suddenly things look a lot brighter. And don't forget, Jason, this Rams team was 3-6 at their bye week 10, entering week 10 last year. And we're able to go 7-8 down the stretch and make the playoffs. So 2-2 would look a lot better than 1-3.
Totally agree there. And with everything that you say, this sounds as close to a must-win as you can have in week 4 for the Rams. They have a quarterback who's won so many must-win games, Matt Stafford, familiar foe for the Bears. How much does he have left in the tank, and how has his game been able to evolve as he's gotten older with the Rams?
Yeah, there are guys in this league that watch what Matthew Stafford can do, including what he can do in that week 3 win over the 49ers. And they're on Twitter. These are, veteran receivers and stuff saying, man, I want to go play with that guy. I'm talking about the no-look passes. The great example of Matthew Stafford commanding is first of all, what I would tell anybody, any of your listeners who want to kind of see what this matchup with the Bears might look like, or just are huge football fans, right? Watch the final 3 minutes of that Rams 49ers game. It's available. I think NFL.com posted the final 3 minutes. I'm sure it's on YouTube. I'm sure it's on all your socials. Just watch the final 3 minutes of that game. First of all, it's chaos. It's crazy. It's football at its finest. It's what we love about it. But you watch when the 49ers missed the field goal to go up 10, which obviously hurt them, crushed them. It gave the Rams great field position. And next play, Matthew Stafford, play action fake, delivers to Tutu Atwell, a guy you probably never heard of. I promise you he's probably not on many fantasy teams. But this guy gets a 50-yard pass, puts it down to like the 2-yard line. They come down. They're in a pass format. Matthew Stafford audibles at the line of scrimmage after seeing how the Niners line up, and then hands the ball off out of the shotgun to Kyron Williams on a halfback draw, or a running back draw. Yeah. He goes right up the middle for the game time touchdown. That was all Stafford, seeing what the defense setup was, predicting the pass, audibling into something he knew would get a score, and it tied the game. And he's just cool and calm under pressure. And as we've seen, I think he's probably at this point the second oldest quarterback in the league behind Aaron Rodgers. But as we saw with Tom Brady late in his career and in Tampa Bay, winning a Super Bowl into his 40s, as we're seeing with Aaron Rodgers now, if you protect these quarterbacks, if you keep them healthy, keep them upright, they can still throw the ball around. And a lot of the game, when you look at some of these rookies, look at Bryce Young, the former number 1 pick, just getting benched in Carolina. It doesn't matter if you're young and athletic and all these things. It's the mental part of the game. Sometimes that's a little bit more impressive and important than the physical part. And Cooper Kupp was actually a guy who used to tell me that, because I would be like, man, in his Triple Crown year when they won the Super Bowl, I'd be like, what are you doing in the season? And how are you staying in shape? And, how are you outrunning these defenders and these cornerbacks and beating them on routes? And Cooper said, all my physical work is done in the off season. Once the season starts, I'm literally in a dark room watching video, watching film, because once the season starts, it's all mental. And you got to figure out, how can I get an edge on this guy? How can I beat him? How can I fake him? What are his weaknesses? And it's all film. And Matthew Stafford is that guy who's up at 5 a.m. with Cooper Kupp in the film room at the Rams facility, which is now in Woodland Hills. And they're studying film together. And that's how you get the edge. And to your point, I don't think, as long as, his arm is good and he stays healthy and they can keep him upright, he can do that for another few seasons. And he's showing that, and he can do it at an elite level. I think he's right now, 4th in the league or something like that in yards, 4th or 5th. So he can still show he's a top 10 quarterback in this league, despite nobody ranking him there or even thinking about him there. But he's still that dude, if that makes sense. And there's a reason why Sean McVay sent Jared Goff shipping to NFL purgatory, which was Detroit at the time. And obviously now it's changed a little bit, but there's a reason why he did that after Jared Goff got him to a Super Bowl, because he knew Matthew Stafford could run his offense the way he needed, could audible and override him when he needed, if he saw something different from the defense, and he could get him over that hump to win a Super Bowl, which he did. So I still think he's that guy, but you got to keep him upright, which is back to the offensive line, which is where I think this game will be won or lost, in the trenches. And you talked about it being a must win for the Rams. I think it could be if you want to make the playoffs, but I could also make the case this is a must win for the Chicago Bears this early on. I think a lot of people had high hopes for the Bears after they got Caleb Williams, just because of the way they finished the season with Justin Fields last year, and wanting to maybe get a better quarterback in the eyes of Chicago Bears fans this year. So ascend upon what you were able to do last year, which was almost make a push there at the end. But I hate to say this, in that NFC North, with Minnesota playing the way they are, with right now, and another USC quarterback, I might add, you know what I mean, running away right now with MVP at this point. And then you got the Detroit Lions, who we think are probably going to win that division. Green Bay's playing well and now has Jordan Love probably coming back here healthy. And so if you want to stay in this NFC North race, if you're the Bears, this might be a must win here against a team where the Rams are injury riddled and they're kind of limping in a little bit. Obviously, like we said, riding the momentum, but they're a little beat up. And so this is a good time to play them. Whereas maybe in a few weeks, they're going to have Puka Nacua back, Cooper Kupp back, and their weapons back. And you don't want to face them then.
You mentioned some of the injuries. The Rams are among the most banged up teams in the NFL. It was crazy that they were able to win last weekend with the lack of pieces that they had on the offensive side of the ball. But which absence on Sunday do you think is going to be the hardest hole to fill against the Bears in particular?
Yeah, you're going to like this answer. So the Rams, Jason, they got 99 problems. But not having number 9, in my number 99, is probably the biggest one. So the biggest absence is not someone who's even on the roster. It's someone who is a soon-to-be first ballot NFL Hall of Famer, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year award winner, and that's number 99, Aaron Donald, who retired after the season. What I've been seeing on the defensive line, and shout out to Bryce Young, he had a great game against the Niners, got a sack. He's going to need to play that way against the Bears. But Ernest Smith was supposed to be the guy that kind of took over for Aaron Donald. He wore the green dot. He was going to call the plays on defense. He was the guy that was going to kind of be the leader of this defense. He gets traded to Tennessee. It's been absolutely crazy. But to me, watching that first game against the Lions, watching specifically that game in Arizona when they got the break speed off them 42-10, and then watching some of the time the Niners, what Aaron Donald can do, it's just unfathomable. We're talking double team, triple teams on the line, allowing other guys to get to the quarterback, put pressure on the quarterback. What he was able to do to his teammates. In fact, Aaron Donald has the all-time sacks record for the Rams in a single season. But Robert Quinn is next because he played alongside Aaron Donald. You know what I mean? It's not Mean Joe Green. It's not Kevin Green. It's not, any of these guys from old. It's Robert Quinn, a forgotten guy, but Bears fans know him well. Because he played alongside Aaron Donald. And when you play alongside a guy that's double and triple teamed, you're going to get avenues and pathways to the quarterback. And the biggest thing was, if you go back over the years, Aaron Donald was so fast, so strong, so quick, so twitchy and burst for his size, that he was a monster when it came to mobile quarterbacks like Kyler Murray, like Caleb Williams, they're going to say, even to a little extent like Brock Purdy. Kyler Murray was able to extend plays with his feet, go off schedule in that victory. That's why they were able to beat the brakes off the Rams. They could not tackle the guy. They could not get him down. He was able to extend the plays, find Marvin Harrison Jr. a couple times, find open guys, and lead to that blowout victory. In the past, Aaron Donald would never let that happen. Aaron Donald was on Kyler Murray like white on rice and had him down within seconds, not allowing him to do that. And so if you and Brock Purdy, I tweeted about it in some of the games, especially in that fourth quarter, there were possessions he had like 30 seconds in the pocket, no pressure. I was like, this guy could pack a lunch, read a book his travel tickets, and then still go out and make a play, and a couple times with his feet. And so Caleb is much better than Brock Purdy at being mobile, being evasive, not being able to get taken down. He's kind of like Ben Roethlisberger's body and ability to break off tackles, but in like a Robert Griffin or Lamar Jackson body type. You know what I mean? It's insane. He's got those two intangibles together. And so number 99 would have been the guy that could take Caleb Williams and put the fear of God into him, but he ain't there anymore. And I don't really know if there's anyone on the Rams defense who can do that and do what he do and get to the quarterback and stop them from rolling out and take them down in space. And so that worries me, and that's an advantage to the Bears. But outside of that, it's got to be, that two-headed monster at receiver, like you said, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp. Those are guys that are absolute beasts, weapons, top 10 wide receivers in this league when healthy. Matthew Stafford not having that, knowing the way he plays. Remember the Super Bowl when Odell Beckham Jr. goes down with that injury in the first half? Yeah. And all of a sudden the Bengals are like, okay, we'll just double and triple team Cooper Kupp. Let someone else beat us, which was smart. Matthew Stafford had to throw no-look passes, audibles, but he was still trying to get the ball to Cooper Kupp because that's the guy he trusts the most in the Super Bowl and was doing anything he could to get it to him, even when he was double and triple teamed. And so he's still learning to trust guys like Tyler Johnson, guys like Demarcus Robinson, guys like Tutu Atwell. I think last week against the Niners was a big step in getting that trust and confidence with Matthew Stafford, but he's definitely going to miss Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. And then one other thing on the injury front, Akella Witherspoon was a guy they went out and put on the practice squad, let him get some healthy, because honestly, Quentin Lake got picked apart by Jawan Jennings last week. And Quentin Lake's a guy that if Caleb Williams wants to focus on, he can pick apart. I think Keenan Allen might be coming back for this game for the Bears, giving them their weapons back at receiver with Ronnie Odunze. So, if you can get Akella Witherspoon out there, I think that helps the Rams on defense, because their secondary is suspect, where the Bears are very excellent in their secondary. That's another long-winded answer to your question as far as who is not available for this game. That's going to hurt the Rams.
NFL's a copycat league. I've said for a very long time that every NFL team is looking for the next Sean McVay, and they still are. They haven't found it. Sean McVay's still doing his thing, doing well out in LA. What is something that the Bears staff in their current state with Matt Eberflus and a rookie quarterback and Caleb Williams, what is something that they can learn from the way that Sean McVay and his staff does things in LA?
Yeah, I mean, Sean McVay's coaching tree is so long right now. You know what I mean? Like, you're right. Everyone's trying to replicate it, but like they've had success at it. There's a lot of guys in a lot of teams right now, including Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, who's doing a great job. They're all the Sean McVay copycat. So no one's won the Super Bowl yet. They've gotten to the Super Bowl. Zach Taylor with the Bengals is another one that comes to mind from that coaching tree. Now you can say Raheem Morris in Atlanta is another one from that coaching tree, even though he's more of a defensive guy. There's a lot out there. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what can the Bears coaching staff learn from Sean McVay. That's a good question. I think that's that 2022 season after the Super Bowl when they went 5-12, and Sean McVay, admittedly had a horrible year, was thinking about leaving, was thinking about going to the booth. A lot of it was because he didn't handle failure very well. He didn't handle losing very well. He was snapping at guys. Guys in the locker room told me he was always on edge. He was always annoyed. He was mean almost. He wasn't like open and receptive to hearing ideas from other players. And things spiraled very quickly that season. He learned from that. He talked about it. He moved on, and he was able to take a team that had almost no expectations last season, and go 10-7 and make the playoffs, and then come very, very close. Maybe a no penalty on Puka Nacua in the playoffs, which could have been 3 different penalties on one play, from beating the Lions in that wild card round and really turning some heads. And so I think I know we can talk about schematics and X's and O's and some of the plays he draws up. And obviously one thing is that fake punt that he called down 14-0 in the second quarter of this game last week against the 49ers. That to me turned the tide. That to me was something that, I don't know if it was a fake punt, but it was something that, to me, turned the tide. That to me was something that, I don't know if it was a fake punt, but it was something that, to me, turned the tide. That to me was something that, I don't know if it was a fake punt, but it was something that, to me, turned the tide. That to me was something that changed all the momentum in the game, and it hasn't really been talked about in the craziness of that game. But if you punt there and you go down 21-0, that's probably a wrap and you're going to get blown out again. Instead, they were able to go on a long scoring drive, make it 14-7 before the half, and it completely changed everything. So I guess the ability to take risks, which we've seen through the NFL through a couple of weeks. I'm looking at you, Antonio Pierce, with the Raiders, not going for it on fourth down situations, not having the guts to call fake punts and stuff. Sometimes can hurt you. Sean has always been able to take those risks. Sean loves play action passes. And to that point, he's always needed a very good running back to set that up. He had that in Todd Gurley. Then he didn't really have it for a while there with Cam Akers, especially with the injuries, but how he has it again with Kyren Williams. And so if you have a good running back, because this is something I'm looking at you with the Bears, they don't really run the ball the way the Bears of old used to do, especially if you look at the stat line from last week. But Sean can use the run, especially with a guy like Kyren Williams, to set up the pass, to set up the play action pass. And when he has trust in a guy like Matthew Stafford, it opens up his entire playbook. And that's something the Bears can learn, and they can learn from like the humility of a struggle year that Sean McVay had in 2022 to be able to bounce back from that mentally, realize your flaws, realize you're not perfect, even though you were the youngest coach to ever win the Super Bowl in NFL history. Like be humble from those things and learn that you need to be more open. You need to be more kind. You need to be more receptive to other ideas, and you need to go back to having fun with the game. And you can have a good season and a turnaround season like they had last year when they went 10-7. So that's something they can learn. And I'm going to pick upon that real quick. The rushing part, right? The Bears allowed a lot of rushing yards last week. Jonathan Taylor blew through that Bears defensive line like it was a TSA pre-check line, like boo, straight through, right? So, this could mean a good day for Kyren Williams. And I think the important thing for the Rams in this game against the Bears is you can't go down big again like you did in week 1 against the Lions. You can't go down like you did against the Cardinals. You can't go down big with the Niners. That makes you more one-dimensional. It makes it easier for this Bears secondary and for guys like Montez Sweat to just pin their ears back and go after Matthew Stafford, which I think they'll put some pressure on in this game. But if the Rams can take a lead early or be right there in a toe-to-toe game, that opens up the entire playbook for them. I think it means Kyren Williams is going to have a good day. I think it means the offense can have a good day, and therefore the Rams can have a good day. So that's a very important key, is to not go down early and try to establish the run early against this kind of Bears defensive line that's suspect for the run, and their offensive line also suspect a little bit. So put pressure on the quarterback. I think this game will be won in the trenches, and I think what happens through the first quarter and what the score will be at the end of one is really important as well.
Hanging out with NBC Sports Los Angeles is Michael Duarte, talking a little Bears-Rams ahead of this weekend's game. Michael, last question for you. You're a USC alumni. You covered Caleb Williams the last few years. We knew what Caleb was going to be when he got to USC, but just tell us a story, if you have one, of a moment that you covered, that you saw in person with Caleb, where you were like, okay, this kid's going to be good. The hype is real.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the opponent. I'm pretty sure. I mean, there was at least one every game. But that first season, that Heisman season with Lincoln Riley, the expectations at USC were very low. They exceeded them. Outside of Utah, they were able to beat everybody, which was amazing. But I'm pretty sure, if my memory serves correct, it was against Notre Dame. And this was one of those plays we talked about that the Rams need to desperately avoid on Sunday, where it looked like Caleb was taken down for a 5-yard sack. Boop, he spins out of it, runs all the way, maybe like 10 yards to the right, cuts it back in, cuts it left, stiff arm, breaks another tackle, and then runs like 30, 40 yards down the field and finally slides down. And he turned what was an inevitable sack, and it was probably on third down, into one of the biggest plays. And I remember tweeting it out and saying that, like in any Heisman seasons in past years, there's one play that like the Heisman show on ESPN will just show over and over again as like this guy's highlight worthy play. That moment was, I was like, give him the freaking Heisman. And I know he didn't strike the pose until like a week later when they played UCLA and stuff. But like, that was the moment when I was like, this guy's the Heisman Trophy winner. What he can do when he goes off schedule, breaking sacks, breaking tackles, stiff arms, running the ball downfield. And as you saw it in a preseason game, doing that and then delivering a 50-yard dart down the field to like Ronnie Odunze for a touchdown or something. He can do that as well. It's very reminiscent, like I said, to Kyler Murray, but he's in Ben Roethlisberger's body. So that makes it even more exciting. That was one moment. But other than that, his personality, which USC allowed to show. We're talking about the painting the nails, which everyone hated. We're talking about going into his mom's arms after they lost that game to Washington. That was another game, that and the Arizona game before it. This was last season. His final season in college, not the Heisman Trophy winning season, not a great season for USC because they had no defense, because Alex Grinch was atrocious as a defensive coordinator. But there was that Arizona game, which they had no business being so close, that he literally won himself in overtime on an amazing play where he ran the ball, put the ball right in front of the pylon to win the game on the 2-point conversion. There was that game. Then the next week, he was an absolute stud against Washington, where literally, I'm not even joking, the defense couldn't stop Washington, not even once. I don't remember the final score, but it was like 52 to like 45 or something like that.
Yeah.
But like the defense could not stop Washington. And we're watching this game going, just stop them once, force one punt, and Caleb can win this game. And they couldn't do it. And he's crying in his mom's arms after the game, just showing the emotion of the moment of, I gave absolutely everything and I got nothing back from my defense. That's who Caleb Williams is. That's the kind of guy he is. And I'm just so excited for the future for Chicago and for Bears fans and for what Caleb's going to do, because I think he's going to be one of the good ones in this league and for a long time, as long as he can stay healthy. And what he can do is just absolutely amazing. And he'll figure it out. There's a learning curve. It takes time. You got to get adjusted and acclimated to everybody, and you've put talented receivers around him. So I'm really excited for it. It might not happen this year. You might need to invest in the offensive line and get him protected for the next couple of years. But I'm really excited to see what he can do for the future. And those are a couple stories of that at SC.
We're all excited about the future of Caleb Williams. And I know you're excited for your future these next few weeks, covering the Dodgers and the Rams and everything, all the other great work that you do in LA with NBC Sports LA. Michael, thank you so much for taking the time to join me. I know that you're busy. We're all busy deep in this football and baseball season, but really appreciate you taking the time to talk some ball and catch up.
Yeah, thank you. And we got Sports Equinox. I got Lakers Media Day Monday, which kind of is the first start that basketball season will begin, because their training camp starts the next day. So it's literally every professional sport rolling all at the same time right now here in the fall. So it's exciting. It's extremely busy. It's fun. I'm like an octopus with 8 arms, just trying to figure it all out, trying to like a MasterCard, trying to be everywhere you want to be all at once. But I think once this Dodgers run in October ends, which is going to be super exciting. I hope it ends at the end with a World Series trophy being hoisted by Shohei Ohtani, because that'll be absolutely amazing. Yeah. But once that ends, things will get a little bit easier. So hopefully with that, so we'll see. And thanks for joining me. And we'll see what happens after this game. It should be an exciting one.
Should be a good one. Thanks again, Michael.
Thank you, Jason.
Super cool being joined by NBC Sports Los Angeles' Michael Duarte for today's podcast. If you know a little bit about my background in sports media, you know that a big thing that got me into this industry was when I broke the Jock Peterson trade rumor. And Michael was somebody who was always there in my DMs giving me advice like, hey, I know that you're a kid. This is how we do things in this industry. Don't panic. Don't, feel like an idiot. Like, this is how you do things. And just super cool for things to kind of come full circle now as a 22-year-old, no longer a junior in high school, the last time we really interacted in this realm. And so super cool to do this podcast with Michael, and super thankful that he took the time to do that today while he's in the middle of covering every sport known to man out in Los Angeles. So with that, it's time for our predictions segment, which is my favorite. I don't think it's my mom's favorite because I think she thinks I go too long on it, but I'll go short on it for y'all today. We're going to start out with Bears-Rams. I think the Bears are going to bounce back and get a win here. I know that it seems like I always predict a Bears win, but seriously, do we think this team's going to start out 1-3 with the teams on the schedule the first 4 weeks? I don't think so. I think that the Bears are due for a win here. I think Caleb has improved every week. I think he is going to have a clean, turnover-free game against this Rams defense, and I've got the Bears winning a close one on not a last-second field goal or a last-second touchdown, but just a game-winning drive in the fourth quarter. I think that that's a nice lukewarm prediction. Biggest college game of the year is this weekend, too. Georgia, Alabama. I'm super excited for that one. nothing better than college football. This is a hard game to read. I mean, these are two schools who don't really play each other unless they're in the SEC championship. And so to get this game this early in the season is a treat, and I'm really excited about it. I think it's great for football. I'm going with Georgia in this one. They're the home team. Sanford Stadium's going to be buzzing. I don't know how prepared Alabama will be going into a road environment like this without Nick Saban. This is the first time that we're seeing Kalen DeBoer bring the Crimson Tide into a hostile environment against a team just as good, if not better than them. And so I'm going to go with Georgia because I think the Bulldogs are the best team in the country that doesn't wear burnt orange. And I think that home crowd at Sanford Stadium is going to make a really big impact on Saturday night. So there is prediction number 2. Prediction number 3. We have to talk about the Chicago White Sox because any day now, honestly, by the time this podcast is up, they're probably going to have the loss record. And I'll take my final thoughts to talk about that. But my prediction is that Grady Sizemore is going to be brought back as a manager. I think that this is a front office that hasn't learned from their past mistakes. We read in ESPN this week that Jerry Reinsdorf did not do a single interview outside the organization when he hired Chris Getz. We read that Jerry Reinsdorf did not even bring in A.J. Hinch for an informal interview when he hired Tony La Russa. So why should we expect Jerry Reinsdorf to do things the right way this time around? Grady Sizemore is probably deserving of this. We don't know how good of a manager he actually is because of the pieces he's been given on the field this year. He might deserve this. It's just the fact that the White Sox are going to do things the way that they always do things, even though they're about to break the loss record. Frustrating, not surprising, and that's why it's a layup of a third prediction for me. So Grady Sizemore is going to be back as the White Sox manager, whether you like it or not. All right, that's it for today's show. My final thoughts on the note of the White Sox about to break the loss record. If you're rooting for that to happen and consider yourself a White Sox fan, you can pack your things up and walk out the door. I really do not consider anybody who roots for their team to lose to be a fan of their team. I just consider you to be an idiot, to be honest. And it's not an exciting thing for White Sox fans to be a part of this. Like, it sucks. It's really not fun having your team lose 121 games in a season. And no people should be going to the game actively rooting for it to happen while wearing White Sox gear. Like, if you want to go and be a part of history, that's fine. I'm a baseball fan too. I appreciate that stuff. But, like, don't be sitting there clapping and cheering and acting like we're about to clinch a playoff berth when the White Sox have won 38 games this year. I just think it's embarrassing for the fan base. The team's been embarrassing enough this year. Let's not make the organization as a whole look more embarrassing than it already has to be. So that's all I have to say about it. And I'll be excited for early April, late March for a fresh, clean slate of White Sox baseball. And I will be rooting for them to win. That'll do it for today's show. For our sponsors, thank you very much. For our producer, Jack McGrath, really appreciate you. For my mom, Peggy Kaczynski, who could not make it today, we really appreciate all the work that you do in season, Mom. It is super cool with you still covering the Bears. I take a lot of pride in saying that you're my mom, and I know that you take a lot of pride in the work that you do. So continue your great work. If you like our show, please like, rate, subscribe. All that stuff helps us wherever you get your audio. You can get the Sportscaster and her son. Please also follow us on Twitter at TSAHSPod. That is at TSAHSPod on X, formerly known as Twitter. Next time we record, which will hopefully be next week, my mom will be here with me. But for now, for Jason Kinander, for ESPN Chicago, for the Sportscaster and her son, have a great night.